Hey, yo, lesson here, babe. You come at the king, you best not miss.
Good day and good night. Welcome to the High and Low Retrospective, where we press rewind and play back the shows that left a permanent mark, like scuffs on a pair of pristine up-tempos, whether they were short-lived cult favorites or long-running cultural cornerstones. Today, we're talking about a series that's often cited in the same breath as The Sopranos or Breaking Bad, a show that didn't just depict the city but dissected it with surgical precision. Today we're talking about The Wire. It wasn't built for viral moments or flashy cliffhangers. It wasn't even built for binge watching before binge watching was a thing, but somehow The Wire managed to become one of the most important television shows of all time, even if the world didn't realize it while it was airing. So, how did a slow burn crime drama about Baltimore's institutions become the blueprint for prestige television? Let's talk about the beginning, the middle, and the ongoing legacy of The Wire. Yeah, we're going to need a full 5 seasons of conversation for this one, but I'll try to keep it under 20 minutes. Anyway, let's get into it.
Let's talk about something important.
In the early 2000s, HBO was on a hot streak. The Sopranos had changed the game, Sex and the City was still setting trends, and Oz had shown audiences just how dark cable TV could get. But David Simon wasn't interested in mob bosses or fashionistas. He had something different in mind. Before The Wire was a show, it was a notebook, or about 10 years worth of notebooks filled by Simon, who was a reporter having spent over a decade at the Baltimore Sun covering crime and watching a city slowly break apart from the inside. Simon didn't just report the stories, he lived them, and he met people living them too. One of them was Ed Burns, a former Baltimore homicide detective and public school teacher. Together they decided to tell the story of a modern American city, but from every angle, not just the police tape and courtroom sketches, the whole ecosystem. When HBO said yes, they didn't just greenlight another glossy network procedural. They gave Simon and Burns 5 seasons to tell one epic story from 5 perspectives. HBO took a chance, and The Wire premiered on June 2nd, 2002.
Just dream with me. We ain't got to dream no more, man.
At its surface, The Wire was about the ongoing battle between Baltimore's drug trade and law enforcement agencies tasked with shutting them down. But from the jump, you realize this isn't Law and Order. The lines are blurred. The good guys aren't that good. The bad guys, sometimes they're better men than the people chasing them. Season 1 introduces us to the Barksdale organization, a drug empire run with corporate efficiency by Avon Barksdale, played by Wood Harris, and his lieutenant, Stringer Bell, played by Idris Elba, whose business-first mindset makes him one of the most compelling figures ever put on screen. Meanwhile, Detective Jimmy McNulty, played by Dominic West, and his ragtag unit of underdog cops piece together a wiretap investigation that feels like a Hail Mary from the opening whistle. Then the show pivots. Season 2 shifts to the working-class stevedores of Baltimore's docks. Season 3, politics and reform. Season 4, well, that takes us into the school system and the way kids are funneled from classrooms to the corners. And Season 5, the media and the stories we choose to tell. By the end, you realize The Wire isn't about any one character. It's about the system, all the systems, and how they're rigged against the people trying to survive within them. The cast is a who's who of future stars and legends. Besides Elba and Harris, you've got the late Michael K. Williams as Omar Little, the Robin Hood of the West Side, Sonia Sohn as the quietly brilliant Kima Greggs, Wendell Pierce as a deeply flawed but oddly lovable Bunk Moreland, a young Michael B. Jordan as a Wallace, a corner boy trapped between a crack rock and a hard place.
What did you say?
And the list goes on, and no one feels wasted. Every player is essential, every actor at their absolute best, with faces you believe because they felt real, because a lot of them were real. The show was filled with people that were actually from Baltimore, former police, former hustlers, former civilians impacted by the system, people who knew the story because they'd lived the story. The Wire was never about good guys versus bad guys. There were no heroes, there were no villains, it was just a game.
Oh,
All in the game, yo. All in the game.
David Simon called it his visual novel, which makes sense. The pacing was slow, the layers were deep, the characters took time to unfold, but once you were in, you were all the way in. And underneath it all was the same idea, repeated over and over. The system doesn't care about you. It doesn't care if you're smart or ignorant. It doesn't care if you're good or bad. It doesn't care if you're trying to change it or keep it the same. The game is the game. And most of us, we're just pieces on the board. Here's the wild part. Nobody was watching The Wire when it was on. No Emmys, no big ratings, no cultural moment like Breaking Bad or Game of Thrones, but word of mouth turned The Wire into gospel. Critics started calling it the greatest TV show ever made. Academics began teaching it at universities. Politicians referenced it in speeches. Even Barack Obama once said that Omar was his favorite character. I don't know what that says about Obama, but hey, let's go with it. The dialogue, the authenticity, the pacing, it wasn't designed for mass consumption. The Wire wasn't easy to follow. It didn't give you everything in the first episode or even the first season, but if you stuck with it, you got one of the greatest payoffs television has ever delivered. The influence of The Wire is everywhere. Shows like Snowfall, Top Boy, Breaking Bad, Atlanta, all owe a debt. The grounded, patient storytelling, the flawed human characters, the larger commentary hiding in plain sight. The Wire showed that television could be literature, complex, political, painfully real. Some might ask, why did The Wire take so long to get its flowers? Well, part of it was timing. Premiering in 2002, it didn't have the social media engine to create weekly hype cycles. It also wasn't escapism. If anything, The Wire was too real. It held up a mirror and said, look at us, look at this mess. And a lot of people just weren't trying to see that. It was dense, it was deliberate, it refused to hold your hand because it never underestimated your intelligence. In a landscape where cop shows wrapped up cases in under an hour, The Wire asked you to follow breadcrumbs across an entire season, sometimes longer. But the real ones knew. Cult following grew, and eventually, The Wire became the yardstick for serious television. Now, while putting this together, one question seemed to resurface like a tormented soul scratching at the surface of its grave. Actually, that's a bit dark, sorry about that. But the question stands, has The Wire aged well? Honestly, it might hit even harder today. The themes of institutional failure, systemic inequality, corruption, those haven't gone anywhere. If anything, they've become more pronounced. Watching The Wire in the 2020s feels like reading prophecy. You sit there like, they told us, right there in 2006. Visually, the show holds up. The writing, still razor sharp, and those performances, untouchable. In an era where reboots and revivals are everywhere, the fact that no one has dared to bring back The Wire tells you everything you need to know. Some things are perfect as they are. Now, at this point, The Wire isn't just a TV show. It's a document, a time capsule, a warning. It changed what people thought TV could do, what stories it could tell, and how real those stories could feel. It didn't just capture Baltimore, it captured America, warts and all. And the blueprint it laid down is still being studied, still being imitated, and still being respected decades later. Since The Wire ended in 2008, the TV landscape has exploded with new contenders for greatest show of all time. In the years since, we've seen the rise of Breaking Bad, Mad Men, Game of Thrones, Succession, Better Call Saul, and a wave of other modern classics that have expanded the pantheon. And yet, The Wire has only grown in stature. What was once an underwatched, under-awarded series has become a cultural landmark, spoken about with reverence, recommended like required reading, and analyzed like great literature. The more television evolved, the more The Wire felt like the foundation so many of these newer prestige dramas were built on. I can go on and on about The Wire, but I'm going to leave it there. That's the High and Low Retrospective on The Wire, a show that made us look deeper, listen harder, and understand that all the pieces matter. Whether you caught it the first time or came to it years later, its impact is undeniable. Its place on the Mount Rushmore of prestige television is secure. Not that anyone needs me to confirm that. If you haven't watched The Wire, or if it's been a minute, now's the time. Don't forget to comment, subscribe, share the video, come back again for more deep dives into shows, movies, and music that shaped us. Until next time, stay curious, stay nostalgic, and remember,
ain't no nostalgia to this here. It's just the street and the game and what happened here today.